You are now tuned into the Leader's Lens podcast.
And we are live, the Leader's Lens podcast. I'm not sure the sequence that will actually release the episodes, but this is the first episode we're recording, and I'm excited to have my good friend Drew Williams, who's the COO at ConGenius. Drew, thank you so much for making it, man? The Leader's Lens podcast.
Let's go.
We appreciate you.
Yeah, man.
The crowd is ready. The crowd is fired up, Drew. They're ready to go.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, we got to know each other working for a large corporation in a previous life. And both of us have now transitioned into careers with startups. And so I'm excited to explore with you just some of the leadership principles that translate well, some of the things that are different. You know, if you're leading a team in a big corporate environment versus a startup where you're looking at 10 to 50 people. But I want to first talk about a video that I think is just incredible that you released on YouTube. That's titled, "How Are You Spending Your Tank?" And we'll leave a link for everybody to click in the show notes so they can check it out as well. It's like a 10-minute video. Definitely recommend checking it out. But I think it's especially relevant right now because people still are dealing with the burnout of these last couple of years. You know, people are still seeing the kind of residual impacts of a lot of the life changes people were forced to make, and just tough times people had to work through. So how are you spending your tank? What's the theme of this video, and why is it a talk that you've been so passionate to give?
Yeah, man, I think I think the theme of it really is understanding like everyone's got a certain level of energy you've got in the day. Like you wake up and birds are chirping, it's the beginning of a day. Your tank is full, ideally, and by the end of the day, most of us are tired. And you wind down physically, but you wind down throughout the day emotionally as well. So mental, emotionally, you've got a gas tank, and throughout the day, that thing is going to hit empty by the end of the day normally. I think most people can relate to that. At the end of the day, you're just out of gas. You're like, I got nothing left to give.
Absolutely.
And it's
Absolutely.
Like your most creative work is normally done early in the day, and that, And so really, if you think through like what's, monitoring where is your energy going, throughout the day, but also through your weeks and years, like where are you spending your energy, And I think that's the thing is, in today's world, especially the last 2 or 3 years, man, like there's so many things that are taking your energy and attention, and so many things to worry about, so many things to be afraid of, so many causes that we all believe are supposed to be passionate about, but we just don't have enough passion for it. It's like you feel bad because you don't care enough about this issue. Whatever the thing is, man, it's just like it's just nonstop. The economy runs on taking your attention right now, and it's and when your attention is vested all these places, you're not able to give your best self to the things that actually matter. And so, really, it's just understanding like, hey, like you're going to spend your energy somewhere. And the successful people, it's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I know that's one of your go-tos, but it's that the law of being like proactive is saying, hey, what can I do about this? And so really it's about taking inventory of when you find yourself worrying about something, stressing about something, and you can almost feel it. You ever feel like you're worrying about it, and you can almost feel the energy sucking out of your body as you worry about something. But successful people take each one of those things and say like, hey, what can I do about this? Like, can I do something about this or not? And if the answer is no, they're quick to be like, cut that. That's not going to take my energy. I care about it.
Yeah.
It's important. It may be a terrible situation, but a lot of times, if you cut that off, you're able to actually spend your energy in the things that do matter. And so where most people go south is they spend all their energy on things they can do nothing about. It's like, hey, there's a war on the other side of the world. It's like, that's awful. And you read the headlines and you wake up and you scroll your phone reading this terrible story, and it's like taking your energy, but like, hey, what can you do about that? I'm not saying you don't care, but I'm saying is that the best use of your energy today? And so figuring out how to stay in my sweet spot of what can I do something about? Because I think the voices screaming for your attention today that are asking you to care about things that you can't do anything about are so loud. And I think that's, figuring out how to zone that stuff out, say, wait a minute, now what can I do? And then really you find your productivity and and adding value and doing things about it. One of the biggest things outside that circle is other people's behavior. You know what I mean? Like I cannot do anything about what my neighbor said, what my cousin did, what my, I can't change this, but we spend so much effort and energy. Like, well, they said this and they did that, and I can't believe it. And it's like, wait a minute. I mean, you're draining your tank on something that's other people's behavior, and so the kind of the law is like, hey, the more you own your circle of control, the bigger your circle gets, right? Because you start to become a person of execution, someone who does what they say, someone who's got a high capacity. You got those people in your life. You're like, how do they get all that done? It's because of what they say no to. They say no to the things you're saying yes to, and their energy is going to things they can do, right? And then they become a person of a higher net worth, a higher level of leadership, higher level of influence. They're in better physical shape, better mental shape. And all of a sudden now people are coming to you, and you actually can influence other people's behavior because you become a person of a reputation along the way, and I think that's kind of what that's about. So,
I think that a lot of that, just focusing on the things in your control, it gives you the capacity to lead well.
Yeah.
Because if you're constantly consumed by the breaking news and the new headlines, or like the expectations that we're supposed to care about everything in the world, which we just don't have the capacity to do as people.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
There's no way you can be there for your team at your full potential. So I think that's a great analogy. And I kind of look at it as two circles. Like there's this giant circle that's everything in the world that you can be concerned about. And then in the middle, there's these things that you have control. And I feel like when you really focus on that circle of control, like that circle actually gets bigger, and you're able to have an impact and an influence on even more.
Yeah. I think it's just even things like shutting off social media if you need to. What are the distractions? I read a book a while back. This guy named John Mark Comer, he's a Portland guy, but he had this book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, and highly recommend it, man. But it's just like he talks about the hurried soul. How your soul is hurried and has frantic energy. And he was like talking about that, like the news headlines, like we have instant access to horrible information happening all over the planet that no one had 50 years ago. And he's like, the human soul wasn't meant to be able to handle that weight, and so it's interesting concept of like, man, like, can I carry that or not? And should I be carrying that? So it's a lot.
I know that you keep your Portland connections alive.
Absolutely,
big Blazer fan. Shouting
Rip
out
City,
the Portland
baby.
author.
Rip City.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we get a lot that we look like twins, and I definitely see it. I hope you take it as a compliment, because I certainly do.
I do.
But even before we knew each other, people would message me that.
Yeah.
Barely, man. This is getting thin.
Oh, man.
Show the camera here a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I got it.
Yeah. Once you start connecting, then you got to go and just got to.
It's too late at that point.
Yeah.
I've always looked forward to having gray hair, but I don't know if it's going to make it.
Yeah.
I think the hair might go before it turns gray. So there's a race happening right now. We'll see who wins.
Yeah. Our rap skills.
Give us a little bit of
rap skills are the other thing that we get compared on to. You're a better rapper than I am, but I do dabble.
We need to do the leadership rap. I'm bringing it to TikTok. I posted a few videos on Twitter. I don't think I knew about the rapping.
Yeah. No.
Tell me a little bit about I want to hear about your history of rapping, how you got into that, but then we can maybe transition and talk about your background in leadership as well.
Well, I think, man, I just grew up in the 90s, man. Back when rap music was like Tupac and Biggie, and they were like rapping about real stuff. They were actually like trying to like shoot each other. So, I was into, me and my buddies had big stereo systems in our cars, and whose bass could get louder. And, so that was the thing, is just driving around, listening to that era of rap music, Dre, all those people. Eminem.
So were you freestyling a little bit on your own, or were you mostly just going with other people's lyrics?
No, I was mostly just a karaoke king, man. I'm not on your level.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So I had to check. And talk to me about leadership. You growing up, have managed very large teams. You're close to 1,000 people. Now we've transitioned to a startup. But what was your journey into leadership? What did that look like?
Yeah, I think my journey in leadership really started at last company we were at, and like it was. I'd led different things, like in college, I was a RA and things like that, and like that's why I probably really realized I wanted to be a leader of people. Was through that avenue, as church and all those things too, where I really realized the influence, like it lit my fires to be able to influence and help other people. And it was really about when you can put self on the shelf. That didn't mean to rhyme, and then actually like invest and serve other people and see like, hey man, I can really help them and lead them in ways, and that is what lit my fires. That's what got me motivated and excited. And so whether it was managing people directly or thought leadership, right, finding creative new ways to like help people be more successful, those are the things that I enjoy, and so that's kind of what happened. And then in 2015 I moved to Missouri to lead a call center, and that was probably the big leap. I went from like this program manager guy to like leading hundreds of people and then got promoted into a director role and a senior director role. And so, but really like that was where, there's a team that was struggling and needed a lot of help. And they, asked me to come in and move to a city I'd only visited like once, and we just said yes. My wife and I were like, yeah, let's do it. Like, let's take the opportunity, and that was one of those pivotal moments when it was like, do the thing that no one else wants to do or the thing that people are afraid to do. Other people see problems, you got to see opportunities. And so we saw a big opportunity, jumped on it. And that's when the rubber met the road on a lot of my philosophical beliefs about leadership, putting those into practice. And then finding a way to get a team that had historically lost to start winning and winning big. But really started out, redefining culture, how do leaders act, how do leaders behave. And the first year, 2 years was not about driving numbers harder. It was about creating a leadership standard of how we behave. And we knew that if we created the right environment, people would rise to that occasion. And so that was kind of the emphasis. And we had a big turnaround there, was able to influence a lot of people. And it was just a ton of fun. It was a ton of fun helping people, and that's kind of always my vision for it. And so you learn a lot, trial and error. I failed a lot, made a lot of bad mistakes. I had some, more seasoned leaders around me that kept me in check and helped me make some more wise decisions at critical points. I had great leaders in front of me, and my boss, the people, my VP, the people who poured into me, it really kept me on track. But it was fun. It was almost like my own long-term leadership lab of trying this and let's see if it works and what do people respond to, But I've always been a people watcher too. I always watch people not just like at the airport, like what are they wearing and why are they wearing that? But just what decisions did you make and how did that play out? Like I'm old enough now where I can see some of the guys I grew up with and I can go back and see key decisions they made at certain seasons and how that 1 degree of separation changed the trajectory of their life from one place to another. And so I've always been big on decision making and helping people make the right decisions so they have the right long-term results. So anyway, that's kind of
I think that's one of the advantages of our background working in customer service in a call center is you saw so many different types of relationships with the leaders.
Yeah.
Like so many different personalities and how this personality can potentially clash with somebody else with a different type of personality. And I felt like I just had so much experience and benefit of seeing how things play out. Like when they acted this way, like I saw how the dominoes, how they would play out. And so now I can be a lot more proactive on how do we get ahead of some of those things and coaching people on how to not make those same mistakes.
I think too, watching in that environment, there were some people who'd never led before that you have to spot leadership talent potential and help them fine tune that and then help them be successful. And so you had a lot of phenomenal leaders that had never led anything before. And so teaching them kind of the ropes on how to do that and then watching them adjust to those things and learning leadership, man, that was always a passion for me too. And then you see how it can change your life because now they realize I've got a marketable skill called leadership that every company will pay for. Every company, big or small, needs 2 things regardless. It's sales and leadership. And if you can sell or you can lead, you'll always find a way to make money. And so watching these people unlock that wait a minute, I can get good at this skill and change my family's trajectory, from the income it produces. So that was always a passion point too. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, that was the most fulfilling thing is seeing somebody just start believing in themselves, start seeing themselves differently and be on a pathway to make 6 figures, which if you live in where I live in Salem, Oregon is a really good living.
Yeah.
That was just really, really exciting. Were there things that you learned to look for and identify as cues that somebody was maybe ready to take that step and step into leadership?
I think I always looked for, this is probably a bias because, people always look for what they had in themselves. But I mentioned earlier, but that spark, you see someone who you see their light bulbs go off when they help someone else, when they're like, man, I helped that person be better. And you see the spark in the light in their eye. When they're like, that's when I'm like, okay, so you get that it's about other people and you get it's about making their name great and not yours. Those are those things where the root systems of what they believe. And if you can see that in them, that was always important, because there's always the person who says, I want to climb the corporate ladder, I want to make more money. I want to do this for myself. And it's like, okay, cool. But the most successful ones, leadership has a price tag to it. It's hard. And if, for every, you're going to sow into, 10, 20 people and give them everything you got, and a few of them are going to be really successful and thank you along the way. And the majority of them aren't going to thank you, and a lot of them are actually going to badmouth you when they don't get what they want because you're the only leader who actually said what they needed to hear. And so those hard things, if you really invest into people, it's hard. It's difficult emotionally and mentally. And so, you got to have that spark. For the few of them that do take off and that really you see that change their life, that's got to motivate you to the point that you're willing to work with all the hard things of leadership, because it's not sexy and it's not fun. It's challenging. And so if they had that inherent desire to serve people, that's helpful. You have to have self-awareness. You have to have emotional intelligence. I know it's, one of your big things too, man. You got to have that emotional intelligence to be able to regulate self, read other people, and then figure out how can I lift the atmosphere of the room, and so kind of that sense in a room, can they see what do they inherently see what the problems are, and are they willing to be part of the solution, and then coachability, the ability to give and receive feedback, which really falls in the emotional intelligence bucket, but the ability to give and receive feedback effectively is a huge deal. So outside of that, a lot of things can be taught, and a lot of personalities can lead. It's not always these extroverted, charismatic people that become great leaders. And I think that's a mistake. We often mistake charisma for character. And then we put charismatic people in the rooms they don't deserve to be in, and it's like, and then their lack of character actually caused the whole house to fall down. You know what I mean? So understanding that different personalities can lead. If you're someone who's an introvert and maybe you don't love being in front of people or whatever, that doesn't mean you can't be a great leader, So every personality can lead. It's about what are the character qualities and the inherent belief systems they have. You can see those things. You can work with that and shape it.
I love it. And something that I think you have experience with, kind of building off the idea of preparing people for new leaders to become leaders, is that onboarding process of identifying somebody with potential, going through the interview process, hiring, and then setting them up for success to lead teams. What advice would you have for somebody that's maybe doing that for the first time or trying to learn how to do that better in their business?
I mean, if they're trying to, onboard, it's, pick the right people, know why you picked them. And then you got to think of leadership as a skill. It's like playing guitar or shooting free throws. Like the more you do it, it takes repetition on things. And so I think it's walking with them through things, being a safe place to ask questions. There's no promotion like fairy dust. Like a lot of times what happens, we give someone an offer letter, whatever, hey, you got promoted to leader. And we think that the leadership fairy comes on them that night and sprinkles leadership dust on them. All of a sudden they know. And it's like, well, just because you gave them a title doesn't mean that now they're a good leader, And I think that's where it's like, you got to stay close to them and invest in them along the way. And you have to be a safe place for them to fail, especially when they're navigating people issues. They're navigating conflict. They're trying to motivate. They've got the outlier person on their team that they just can't seem to connect with. You've got to be a sounding board and coach them, and that's where I think as you elevate as a leader, it's the ability to lead leaders, and create more leaders. That's that multiplication effect. That's magic. And so I think where people go wrong a lot of time is, if I'm in that spot where I'm trying to pick leaders or develop them, I only see leaders and people who look and act like me, or maybe have my personality. And then as soon as I put them in role, I just think they're going to figure it out. And I think that's where, you got to coach them and walk through them through hands-on stuff. So be a safe place for them to say, I don't know. Because when we have that leadership fairy dust mentality, we put new leaders in a spot where they feel like just because my job title changed, now I'm supposed to have all the answers. I must have gotten hired in this leadership role because I'm the smartest guy here. So I have to have the answers. I got to look smart. I can't ask for help. I can't say I don't know. They hired me to be perfect. And it's like that. We don't say that, but we act that way, and so I think it's like staying super close to them along the way and say, hey, what did you struggle with this week? And be a safe place for a new leader to come to you with what's not working, because they just got that promotion, man. They're now internally on a mission to prove that they belong in that role. And so making sure that they stay humble and you create that through your own humility.
You see the newly promoted person acting that way towards their boss, but also towards their team, where they want to feel like they need to have every single answer. Which is challenging. I think there is a lot of insecurity, but then with confidence, you're able to be vulnerable and tell your boss, like, this is what I need help with, but also tell your people, like, here's where I could really use your help. I'm struggling with these things, and really build that culture of trust. I think you've always done a great job in your teams. Yeah,
I think you're also trying to, when you're trying to identify a leader in your organization, look for who already has it, right? Like who do the people naturally trust? Who are they following without the title? I always said, hey, when you get promoted, everyone should be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But I'd said this before, when I give someone a promotion and the whole building is like, what? Yeah. And I'm like, oh,
People start quitting, right? Or
right.
people quit because like, this is the new boss. Like, I'm
Right.
out of here. I'm not
Yeah.
working for that guy yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who you promote and what you celebrate is what you'll get, you know. And I think it's important that you know, I used to tell people, like, I can give you a job, but I can't give you leadership, you know. Like, leadership's earned from the team and earned from the people. And like, it's like that Rens do every day thing. It's like, you have to earn that. And if I promote you to a title before you've earned leadership from the people, you're going to fail. Because then you got a title but no respect, you know. And I think that's the thing, is like, if you earn it from the people, you know, then when you get the title, they're already willing to follow, you know, because the pressure of the title can crush new leaders. And so making sure that they have it, that they've already earned that respect, they've earned leadership from the team through their character, through how they show up, through how they're doing the job. You know, people are like, hey, I can learn from this person, I'm more like them. You know, but if you promote an underperformer just because they're really charismatic and say all the right things, or a lot of organizations, it's, you know, nepotism or whatever, where it's like, hey, they got promoted because of who they know and who they're hanging out with outside of work, you're setting your organization up to fail. Because the people who are actually doing the work in the organization, not the leaders, but the real employees who are working with your customers, right? Those are the people, right, that you got to win their trust over and over and over again. And if you choose the wrong people, you're in trouble. But don't give out jobs before they've earned leadership, you know.
I love it. Yeah, leadership's a perspective, not a position.
100%.
I've always looked at it, so that's powerful.
Yeah.
I'm also curious to hear the transition. You transition from a big company to a nonprofit, or not a nonprofit rather, but to a startup. Yeah. I transitioned to a nonprofit.
Yeah.
I'm talking about myself right now, but to a startup. What were some of the differences that you saw first? I'd love to hear some of the similarities as well, maybe after that.
Yeah, I think some of the differences are, you know, I felt like I got off of a battleship and onto a kayak. You know what I mean? Like, a giant corporation, there's so much resource. It's just massive. You could run around the thing for years and never reach the end of it. You know what I mean? Like, it's multiple buildings spread out all over the country, 100,000 employees, you know, like this, it's huge. And then I came here and I was like employee number 5. You know, and we have no revenue because we haven't actually launched our product yet. And so you got to stay scrappy. And so like, there's some big differences. I think, you know, the pros of, you know, at a startup, you've got agility, you know, you can make changes because there's nothing that exists. It's like, it becomes whatever you make it. So this company is awesome. It's because we made good decisions, but if it's not, it's because I didn't make good decisions. I got no one else to blame, you know? And so that agility also comes with a responsibility of, you know, there's no passing the buck. Like, this is what we make it. And so you got to do what you got to do to make it happen, you know? And I think there's some pros and cons in there. Like, the agility and the freedom is great, but that's a heavy weight. I can't blame HR. I can't blame IT. I can't blame some other team that I've never met. Like, well, the people upstairs said this. So no, like, you're it, you know? And so I think, that's part of it. You know, I think, you know, the startup, you know, one of the benefits of a startup is it inherently attracts risk tolerant people. We have 18 employees now. All 18 fully understood what they were walking into. They understood the risk of a startup. They understood the upside, right? Because if this thing, you know, like most startups, if it takes off, we've all got equity and it's going to end really well for all of us, you know? But if it doesn't, I mean, 90% of startups fail. That's just a fact, right? And so in 7 months in, I'm like, yeah, I see why. This is hard, you know? But I think it's, you know, you attract risk tolerant people who are in for the ride and they believed in the vision enough to commit. And most of them left more stable, I don't know what's stable anymore, but they left bigger companies and more stable jobs to come here and be a part of this. And so everyone has that mentality of being all in, which is fun. Like, no one's here just collecting a paycheck because they know if we do that, we all die, you know? So like, it attracts that, you know? And, but I think, you know, the sides of, you know, the corporate things that, you know, maybe I underestimated after leaving, like, there's a lot of resources in a giant corporation that we just simply don't have. You know, whether that's teams or you got people who are experts in certain things, like you always know someone who knows someone who can answer or solve your problem within a giant corporation. You've got brilliant creative people on staff there. You've got full on marketing and advertising. You have all these groups that can really do anything that you need them to do. Whereas that's harder to, you know, to have here. I think I underestimated how important that was. You know, big corporations, it's easy to see the big picture. You're publicly traded, you know, you got the stock price, you got all these scoreboards that are built in where you know how well it's going, you know. And I think the stability factor too, like, you know, if you get set up in a great corporation, a lot of people are there for 10, 20, 30 years. You know, I was there for 20 years, you know. Wow. And so there's some stability, you can create that, you know. So I think it's, there's some pros and cons to both, you know. I think, especially for someone like both of us who are a lot of years at one company, I think what you what I underestimated is how much relational equity I had there, right? So I knew a lot of people who I had a long history and reputation with. And thankfully I had, had a good reputation. But when you come to a new company, or start a new company, guess who cares what you did at the last place? Nobody. And so you can't have that Uncle Rico syndrome of like, well, back at this place I did that, and no one cares. It's like,
look at my trophies.
Exactly.
Nobody cares about your trophies.
Back in high school, no one cares. And so when you walk away from all of that, you got to understand that you build up a lot of equity where people say your name in an organization, they know what it means. Here, you got to start over. And so that's like you're taking a risk financially, but you're also taking a risk with just your own relational equity. You're putting a huge gamble on yourself. I mean, you did the same thing, doing what you're doing, right? I would have bet on the name on the back of my jersey. I can go do this,
100%.
And so that's a big change, but it's been invigorating and exciting for me.
So I recently started a transition from the nonprofit, and I started working full time at Workweek as the director of creator success, which is something I'm excited about because I get to start something from the ground up and really create this department. I'm also really looking forward to the networking and just the opportunity to learn about how a startup works from the inside. What were some of the biggest motivations for you in making that transition?
I think I wanted to. There's a lot of them. I think I wanted to. I believed in it first. And I believed in our founder. He's a person of high character, high aligned values. And so I think, people always buy the vision before they buy the mission, and so inherently our company was I first in love with the mission. I saw it, I got it, it made sense. But the vision of who our founder was, and understanding the more I learned about him, the more I'm like, this is a guy I can hitch my wagon to, and you got to be careful who you hitch your wagon to, and it's because your team will make or break you, and so understanding what you're hitching your wagon to. And I think, I just felt, I'm a faith guy and people put different words on it, but I knew that it was time for a change for me. I knew that it was time to take a leap, and it took a lot of courage and it was scary, but I'm like, I know this is what I'm supposed to do. I knew him, I know her. Like I knew it. And so, and it wasn't a running from anything or like it was just more of a, hey, I'm ready to go take a chance on something, and I built, enough of a, nest egg to take a risk and take a leap. I think I would tell anybody who's climbing the ladder right now within a corporation, or you're seeing your income go up year over year with promotions, a wise person told me, stay out of the golden handcuffs. And that's one thing that I did. And that's a mentality of saying, hey, like I'm not, just because I'm making more money doesn't mean I need to spend more money. And so you got to view your savings and investments as a say yes fund. And so that's another thing I had too. Like I had the ability to be like, I don't need to make a ton of money. I can go take a risk on something. And so from a decision-making standpoint, I often tell people what has the highest upside, the highest ceiling with the lowest acceptable floor. So like I'm a sports fan, I know you are too, like the NBA draft time comes around, they're looking at prospects, they're like, hey, what's this guy's ceiling and what's his floor? The ceiling is how good could they possibly get? The floor is what's the worst they could possibly be. And so a lot of times like people are they're just looking at the floors and like, okay, what's the lowest common denominator? For me, I'm more prone to be like, hey, what's got the highest possibility? What is the highest ceiling with the lowest acceptable floor? And so sometimes something's got a high ceiling, but the situation could get real bad. And it's like, well, I couldn't deal with that. For me, I weighed out what's the ceiling of staying where I'm at 10, 20 years, what's the best it could get? And I felt like I was hitting some of those ceilings where I'm like, I don't want to do the next thing. I don't want to keep, that next thing for me wasn't a thing I wanted to do. And so I feel like I was hitting a ceiling there. And I looked at the ceiling here. I'm like, the ceiling's higher actually. And the floor is lower, but I could deal with that. I'm like, hey, even if the thing crashes and burns, I was willing to bet the name of the back of my jersey that I could go do something else too. And so, when I looked at those facts, like I guess a high ceiling right here and a floor that I could deal with. And the floor was it crashes and burns, and it's still good, right? But I think that's where, from making the jump standpoint, I think the ceilings were too attractive for me to ignore. And the floor was not that scary, Yeah. And the people say you're taking a risk by doing something like this, but you're taking a risk to stay where you're at. The risk is that you wake up 10, 20 years from now saying, I wish I would have taken a chance. The risk is 10, 20 years from now, you're sitting in the same job doing the same thing, you know? And that's the thing too. It's like, man, you're taking a big risk either way. We just don't frame it up like that, you know?
100%.
So anyway.
I think that's something that's interesting about risk adverse people is like, what's the potential downside of just staying the same? Because sometimes people get caught in those loops, and as leaders, we have to help coach them through it. But of just like, I just want to keep doing this because that's what I did today. I want to do it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
And like sometimes we have to point out people like, this is, look where this is headed.
Yeah.
If you keep doing this thing, this is where you're going to go.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you calling that out.
People see the stability of what they know. They'll see those as safety and security. Like, but to another person, those same walls are actually a prison cell of what limits them, you know. And it's how your relationship with risk is viewed one way or the other. It's the house you live in, or it's the prison you're stuck in, you know. But sometimes the exact same things that make you feel stable, for someone who's ready to take a leap, or the kind of the prison bars holding them in, you know.
Yeah, I think it's a powerful piece of being a leader, is helping people get out of those prisons.
Totally.
And I know you've done that in your former career, but in your current one as well. But what are some of the similarities between leading in a large organization where you had a team of 1,000 people, where you're really the mayor of a small city at that point when you're the director of a call center, versus now, you know, we're a much smaller team, but the responsibilities seem like they've increased a little bit.
Yeah, I think you know, the similarities there's more similarities than differences, because I think leadership is still leadership. People are still people, and, you know, great leaders operate on principles that don't change. Lucky leaders or system managers, like they operate on a set of tactics that they think will work in every scenario. And so one thing I've learned is that principles don't change, but tactics do, you know. And so a principle is something that you know to be true, and following your true north as a leader, you understand there are principles that just work no matter where or when you apply them. And it doesn't matter if I'm coaching my kid's little league team or leading a team of 1,000 people. You know, a principle is like, you know, you'll get what you celebrate. You know what I mean? And so whether it's 1,000 people, 18, it doesn't matter. Like, what are you as a leader celebrating? You know, what are you recognizing? What are you appreciating? Like, those things you'll get more of, because there's not an organization where people don't want to be recognized and seen for their contributions. And so a principle is, I recognize people, and I take time to recognize and call out specific recognition things that I see. And that, no matter where you're at, that doesn't change, because people don't change. You know, I think, you know, you've got to, you know, if you're a servant leader, you believe that people matter, like those are principles where it's like, hey, I'm going to, you know, or team building. Like, if I really, truly, inherently believe that the team is the most important thing, and that my success rides or dies on the team that I build, then that principle, you know, the tactic might look different. How you go about doing that, like a recognition I mentioned, how you go about recognizing will be different. Like here, right now, our team is mostly software engineers, you know, versus, you know, call center reps is a big difference, right? And so how you celebrate. So, and what recognition it works. Like, it's not plug and play. I'm not doing all the exact same stuff I used to do, but the principles don't change. And so I think that's something that's been a really cool lesson to see. You know, one thing that I think is, you know, leadership still revolves around trust. You know, at the end of the day, people follow the leader, not the mission. They don't follow PowerPoints or emails. They don't follow, you know, stickers on the wall or, you know, taglines. People follow people. And if you're a leader, that person is you. And so they're following you. And so how you show up, your micro interactions, your demeanor, your everything, how you carry yourself, like they're choosing to trust you. And regardless of what team you're leading, that doesn't change, you know. So there's a lot of things, but there are some things that come to mind.
No, I love it. And I think the benefit of just being a boss somebody wants to work with is an understated employee benefit.
Yeah.
Like, just be that founder that people want to come to work for. And there's a lot of things that go into it, but a lot of what you're saying about your founders, I feel very similar about Becca and Adam here at Workweek, where I wanted to be part of this team because I had great rapport with them. When they talked about the company, I understood the vision, and I was aligned with their perspective on how to treat employees and just kind of where the media industry is headed. So I think when you see somebody that you connect with, it's powerful and it's inspiring. You want to show up every day and do well for a person like that.
Yeah, I think you know, one of my things that stuck with me a long time ago, someone told me, hey, if you be who you're supposed to be, you'll always end up doing what you're supposed to do, you know?
Love
And
it.
I think if you look at a leader's job is to provide clarity. Like, hey, where are we going? Here's what the future's going to look like. Here's, you know, I think what the last 2 or 3 years, because there's so much uncertainty, I mean, everything about the pandemic just crushed leaders. It didn't crush me. You know, it was hard because I had no clue what was going to happen. I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know what to do. And so when everyone's looking to a leader to provide clarity in situations where you have no clarity yourself, like that was hard, you know? And so I think one thing I learned through that season that has stuck with me is I got to be who I'm supposed to be. And I can't necessarily tell my team what we're going to do. You know, there were so many uncertainties. You think about the last, like 2020, 2021, there's so much going on. Like, I don't know what we're going to do, but I could double down on who we were going to be. You know, like, hey, I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen 6 months from now, but I can tell you what we're going to be, right? We're going to be, you know, employee focused. So, you know, we're going to focus on our customers. We're going to be transparent and real. We're going to do our best to make wise decisions with the information that we have. We're going to communicate as soon as decisions are made. You know, like those are the things we could double down on no matter what the decision is or what's going to happen in my uncontrollables. Like I can tell you who I'm going to be as your leader, and then people will buy into that, even though they don't even know where you're going. You know, because I didn't know where I was going, you know, and I think that's true for most leaders in every organization, you know. But when you do know, you got to provide clarity. But either way, when in doubt, double down on values and who you are as a leader, and people will buy into that, even if they don't necessarily know where the company's going, you know. And I think that's one thing I've seen to be very true. You know, as a startup, we've had to shift visions, shift directions, unexpected things, you know, like revenue, you know, like we don't have customers yet, right? And so like we're investing, we're getting investors to sign on. Like there's so many moving parts and things that change. It's hard to say exactly what's going to happen as a leader, but our team has bought in because of our founder and his consistency, his character, the way he shows up every single day. Like they don't necessarily, this will sound worse than I mean it, but sometimes your people don't care where you're going. They care that you're going there. Because if you're a great leader, they're following you, whether you're going to, you know, Michigan or Florida, they're in for the ride because they trust you, you know? And I think that's one thing that I've seen here is like, you know, become that trustworthy leader in times of uncertainty, and people will stay the course and not run when things get scary.
I think that's one of the, we talk about just making decisions and staying the course. I think that's one of the flaws of servant leadership, where sometimes I think people interpret that as, well, I need to get permission from my team before I make these decisions. And, you know, sometimes as a leader, you just have to make that decision. And it sounds like you've kind of learned that as well from experience, and that's what people are looking for.
Yeah, I've learned that the hard way too, because I was definitely that leader. I mean, I'm about the servant leadership mentality, you know, like that's my motivation. But there's a difference between being a servant leader, being a people pleaser, you know, and I think that's hard, you know, because, you know, if you're going to...
You have so many quotables. There's like, I'm like stealing tweets from this interview. I'm going to quote you for some of them.
Hashtag. But, you know, I think a people pleaser, you're trying to make everybody happy. And really, at its core, you might call yourself a servant leader, but if all you're really trying to do is make people like you, that has selfish motives. Because you're actually trying to make your name great by being the most likable leader that there is.
Yeah.
And bro, I guilty, you know, I learned that. I'm like, man, I think I'm being this like super humble guy, but as soon as I had to make the right decision for the business, because if you don't make right decisions for the business, it doesn't matter how liked you are when the business goes under, because you just tried to make everybody happy, you know?
Yeah.
I had a leader I worked for, he's like, hey, if you don't make everybody happy, hire a clown. You know, like,
you know,
sure. So you could Pizza serve party. People, but still do it in a way, you know, at the end of the day, it's a business, you know? And so, you know, and I guess that's where a lot of stuff in the last couple of years got mixed up too. So many of us like, oh, we're a family, until the business necessitated decisions that a family would never do. And I think that's where it's like, you know, be careful with that stuff, because then it's like, if we're a family and you're, you know, a people pleaser, and it's this, you know, communal approach to, it's like, well, that's not how business operates. And sometimes you got to make hard decisions, and as part of the team, you know, losing one person is better than losing all the people, because you didn't have the courage to lose the one. And to view it as like, hey, by making this hard decision, I know that 30% of my staff doesn't like and is going to be real fired up over, that's actually serving the greater vision of the team. And so I will serve the team by taking the hits from the unsatisfied employees or the people who don't like this decision, and I'll be the face of the decision they don't like, because I know it's better for the greater good. That is also servant leadership. And, you know, your people-pleasing tendencies are going to are going to get stepped on a little bit. But I think that's where
and sometimes,
yeah, go ahead.
And you mentioned 30% of the employees. Sometimes it might be 80% of the employees don't like it.
Right.
But as a leader, still having the confidence to understand, like, we're doing this for this reason, like giving context as to why you're making the decision.
Yeah.
But being confident enough in the information you have to make that decision as well, to push it forward, but for that reason, because it still is for the greater good.
A lot of people just want to be heard too. You know, a lot of times people will say, hey, like that, I hate this decision, here's why. And just the fact you take time to actually listen to them, they're not changing your mind, makes a difference. You know, people want to be heard, you know. But I think that's where you can level up your team's understanding of the business. And the more the more people understand where your business is going and how it makes money and, you know, all those things, like the more they come on board with what needs to happen in order to get to that goal, you know, because if you're trying to create a, you know, circus event where everyone's just having a good time, like, and that's where you can go too far, man. I went too far on certain things, man. I did. You know, and I had to learn, like, man, I created an image of myself that now I can't back up. And now that I have to break my commitment because I got to do the right thing for the business, you know. Yeah. But, you know, I think when it comes to even team members that come and go, right? Someone said this to me recently in a podcast I was hosting, and it hit me hard. But he was like, the best way to keep your good employees is to get rid of the bad ones. And I was like, dang. I mean, to view that and be like, no, I'm serving the team by making this decision of getting rid of a bad employee. We've all been that person who's the good employees working next to somebody who's not pulling their weight. It is the most demoralizing thing. And you're actually serving the greater team by making that hard decision. You know, and I think that's where you get like servant leadership goes beyond just, you know, pizza, cupcakes, and pony rides. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes. The lack of accountability is going to kill the team culture for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's interesting because people avoid those conversations because they're so focused on the team culture. They want people to be happy at work, so they avoid the hard conversation. But the reality is that's what's actually going to really do the most damage to the culture of the team.
Yeah. Somebody told me this once. They said, what you permit, you promote. And that always stuck with me. It's like, man, you know, I'm by avoiding this difficult conversation, by avoiding this accountability because for my own pride, I don't want to take the brunt of being the bad guy in a situation. I don't want to make, you know, like it's, you know, my stomach still hurts every time I have to fire somebody, you know? But, you know, what you permit, you promote. And by not doing anything, you're communicating to the larger team that you can slack off and get away with it and it's okay. You know, nothing will kill high performers faster than having to work next to people who aren't, you know, and then having their ceiling lowered because as a leader, you're not doing the right thing, you know?
100%. Something you brought up earlier is being employee focused. And I feel like every company has that on their website now, that they're employee focused, and they probably think that they are, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what does that actually mean?
That's a big question. You know, I think the old school days of hierarchical leadership where the big boss can sit behind a desk, you know, fire off emails, come in and out the back door, have an executive assistant that screens them from the people, that's done. And if it's not, it needs to be. And I think that's where I think people are coming around to say, like, wait a minute, like it's a buyers and sellers market. And I think what the pandemic taught people, a lot of people got to reevaluate their life and change roles. You know, I think you had to learn that it's not a seller's market, it's a buyer's market, right? And so the employee actually had more leverage over the company for a while. That's probably going to change this next season as we probably go into a tough 23 and 24, you know, but I think it caused people like, wait, what are we doing to re-earn our people's commitment? And so I think being employee focused, there's a lot of different tactics that can come out through that. But I think what you have to realize is say, wait a minute, I'm expecting my employees in a world where they actually have options, I'm expecting them to recommit to me. And you got to recommit, you know. I think and it's not just about drinking the corporate Kool-Aid. It's about, hey, what am I doing to earn their trust over and over again? And that might come through ways of, you know, perks or benefits. What I think a lot of companies do is they say we're employee focused because we give one extra week of vacation than the other company. We're employee focused because we've got ping pong tables and massage chairs and what other benefits, you know. But I think those things are, if you do the tactic without the principle, like if you do those things, but at the end of the day, people know your heart's not in it, you're just trying to run some gimmick to increase employee satisfaction surveys, you know, which, you know, done that too. But, you know, like if, you know, then they see through it, you know. I think people want authentic leaders that actually care, you know, and I think to be employee focused, you know, I think it was Jim Harbaugh, football coach, said, hey, the trick to getting your people to believe that you really care about them is to really care about them.
Yeah.
And I think if you're genuine and authentically coming in and putting your heart into your work, and choosing to care about your people, then what you do to prove employee focus will shift and change, and frankly, it doesn't matter. But the fact that you are trying to win them over and get them to recommit by you committing first is an important thing. I think one thing I've been thinking about is, at the end of the day, employment is a contract. I do this and you give me this much money. I do my part, you do yours. And every 2 weeks, those scales are balanced back out when the check clears the bank. And that when payday hits, you don't owe your employer anything and they don't owe you anything. That's the reality of that contract. No level of, corporate Kool-Aid can change that. The balances even out every 2 weeks. And at that point, you owe nobody anything and they don't owe you anything. And you could leave, or they could fire you and replace you. Everybody in a big corporation is replaceable. Everyone, any team is replaceable. You really are. So there's contract, which is the underlying thing. But I think to be employee focused, you want to move from a contract relationship to a commitment relationship, where it's like, it's not just about I'm trading time for money, but no, I'm going to invest my talent for purpose and provision. Like instead of just relying on policies and rules, like I'm going to actually rely on trust and honesty, instead of just, in a contract environment, everyone's just, politics and brown nosing and all that stuff that goes on in big teams, but in commitment, it's like, no, we actually got to be good and add value, and adding the value is what's recognized more than looking right in whatever meeting, and so, I think if you can move it from contract into commitment, and that starts with leaders, not the team. But if your leaders demonstrate, we're more than just doing a contract. We want to give you more than a paycheck. We actually want to invest in you as a person. I want to understand, Jake, what are your motivations? What are your goals? Who do you want to be outside of here? And how can we leverage this job and this role to help you achieve your goals outside of this place? And to actually care. I had a rule like you're not allowed to fire someone unless you know what their kids' names are. You know what I mean? Like if you haven't even gotten to know them to the point to even understand like who they are outside of this place, you probably haven't earned trust for them to trust you and actually give 100%. So I think when you it's a contract, everyone gets 75%, but a commitment starting with leaders demonstrating on a consistent basis, we're committed to our employees in a lot of different ways. Then I think you earn the right to ask for a higher level of commitment from the team, but without that, it just becomes contract again. I think that's what we saw in the last 3 years. Everyone realized this is just a contract. Why am I wearing the t-shirt? Why am I bleeding the right color? This is just a contract.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but I think it forces leaders back to the drawing board and say, wait a minute, I can have a contract. That's great. But that means they can come and go whenever. If I want to really have these people for a long time and get the best people, I got to demonstrate commitment to them, put money in the bank account of trust with my employee, right? So that they're willing to actually commit back to me, and together we can go accomplish a great purpose together. So that was like a super, super long answer. But I think that's
powerful stuff,
where my head's been at recently. It's like, look, even as you build a new company, starting over, it's like, hey, everyone here's on contract. But what do I do to get them committed? Well, shoot, I got to be committed first. It always starts with the leader. You can't have an employee code that doesn't apply to leaders. You can't ask your employees to treat customers a way that you're not treating them. You demonstrate that commitment, you'll move it out of contract relationship into commitment relationship. But employee focus starts with that, I think, is like, hey, from a leader standpoint, are you actually going to care about your people? Because they know. They know if you care or not.
They can feel it.
Big
they
time.
can feel it. What do you feel is the most common mistake that you see leaders make? If you had to pick one.
Probably inability to, probably the hero, complex that leaders get. I think they have to have all the answers. They think, well, I've got to know it all, and I'm the leader, so it's on me, I think, and I don't think people choose that, but I think they end up in that space. I think the best leaders they spend their time understanding who their team is, and then setting their team up to be successful by putting them in their sweet spots. Good leaders, leaders in that hero thing hire themselves, they replicate themselves, and they've got a very one-dimensional team because, they define leader as people who think and act like they do. And it's like the what got you here won't get you there concept. It's like, hey man, just because that's what got you here doesn't mean that's what the right and only way to do something. So I think it's that, and then tied into that is it because of that they're not staffing their weakness. They're not building a team that's diverse in thought and background and skill set, and so they end up having a one-dimensional team, and so I think what happens there is, when you understand and have self-awareness as a leader of what are you not good at? Like there's certain things, man, I'm awful at. I am not good at. I'm just not good at it. I don't enjoy it. I'm not good at it. And so the best thing I can do is find someone who is good at that, who loves doing those things, and bring him into my team. That will create an inherent tension because now I've got people who are the opposite of me on my team. But the tension of managing a diverse team behind closed doors is way better. That's a private tension that you got to manage within the team dynamic. But that is way better than the opposite, which is a one-dimensional team in the background that has no tension because we all think the same way. You put a product out to market and it crashes and burns. And so the public failure of a non-diverse team is way worse than the private tensions of a diverse team. And I think that's where a lot of leaders struggle is they just, they don't build that team. They think it's all on them. Their idea always wins because they're the leader. And so like they have this hero complex where it's like, that actually kills them in the long run. And so have the self-awareness to understand, hey, you're not great at everything. Get people around you who are great at those things and let them go. Let them do their thing, and you'll do great things together as a team. But yeah.
I love it. All right, next question here. What is a book that you've either recommended or given as a gift most often? And what's one lesson that you learned from that book?
Oh, man. I think the one that I probably use the most, and it's kind of a cheeseball pick, but it's the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. I probably give it out because it's 21 chapters. Each one of those 21 chapters is a book by itself. They're short. It's got like practical examples, but there's a lot of timeless things that don't change in that, and I think there's certain laws like, the law of attraction, like you attract who you are, not who you wish you were, people will be drawn to you based on who you actually are, not who you wish you were. Things like the law of the lid, where it's like the most important thing you can do as a leader is increase your leadership capacity, raise the ceiling of your own capabilities as a leader. That's what the organization needs most from you, and so that's probably the one that I've probably given out the most. But yeah, that's kind of a blueprint. The other one is Follow Your True North. That's a phenomenal book. That one, someone gave that to me, but I think that one gave me the confidence to understand who I was as a leader, and knowing that, you have an internal compass and you got to follow your true north as a leader. And I think that's you back to the question of the courage to leave a big stable thing and go on my own. That was a follow my true north moment, where it was like, nah, I know who I am and I know who I'm not, and I'm secure in who I am. I'm not going to try to be something I'm not, and it's really go for it. So follow your true north is something that if you're struggling with security as a leader, which every leader does, most leaders tend to get really insecure. Follow Your True North is probably my go-to.
I love it. Well, Drew, I appreciate you being here on the Leaders Lens podcast. It's pretty incredible how many parallels there are in our story.
Yeah, man.
I'm very fortunate you're able to take the time and have the courage to be the first ever guest on this podcast. But tell us a little bit about ConGenius, what you're working on, because I know your product will either be launched or be prepared to be launched when this episode is released.
Yeah, we'll be out to market in Q1 this year. So different levels of marketing will go into that. So later this year, we'll be marketing pretty heavily. But ConGenius, we're a software company now that's building software for the residential construction market. So if you're a residential contractor, builder, remodeler, basically if you build something in people's homes, you're a potential customer for us. And so what we're doing is building software to help those guys save time and make money. Pretty simple. But in that space, there's 4 out of 5 residential contractors go out of business in the first 5 years. And it's not because they're not talented tradesmen. They're phenomenal tradesmen and craftsmen. They're good at building things. But what ConGenius does is comes alongside and gives them a software that's easy to use. It's not overly complex, but helps them understand how to bid and estimate accurately to make sure they're profitable on every single job and to increase their bottom line to make more money. So most of these guys would rather be out working with their hands and building. That's why they got into that space, and not behind a computer doing estimates and invoices and all those things. And so we kind of take the pain out of that to make it simple, but also make sure they make more money, that they're not 4 out of 5 that go out of business. We want to change that number to that more of these guys are successful. So a lot of blue collar, hardworking, Americans out there that are working hard to build the buildings we live in. And they are phenomenal tradesmen and craftsmen. We're trying to help them become better businessmen to make sure that they can make more money, spend more time at home with their families, have long-term futures with the trading craft that they've built. So that's what ConGenius is about. Check us out. Our first product launch is again this spring. It's about estimating and bidding right to make sure you're winning more jobs and have more profit coming in off of those jobs as step one.
I love it. We'll make sure we leave the link in the show notes so people can check it out. Also, check out Drew's video, How Will You Spend Your Tank, which is an incredible 10-minute watch. And I hope Drew starts making some more content, because I know he knows a ton about leadership and always has a ton of value to bring, man.
I'm
Thanks
still
for being
learning,
here.
man. I'm signed up for your next webinar, man. Always learning.
Do it.